So catching Heather then, I think you might have said that it hasn't meant as much to you as what some people might have imagined, Gaz.
It's a funny one, isn't it? I mean, at the time, it truly did. Like, it meant absolutely everything. You know, I dreamt of catching some of those carp since being a kid, since, you know, seeing the early stuff in Big Carp, and then obviously going back to In Pursuit and stuff again. And yeah,
There's the picture there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so strange, you know, like looking back at it now.
So the picture is actually, you've just landed it because it weeded you up, didn't it?
It did, yeah. It was an incredibly tense battle, and to be honest, like looking back now, it was exactly the kind of battle that could so easily have gone the other way. Like, she was locked absolutely solid. Had to handline just for a point, just to get her moving, and yeah, really, it was a battle that should have probably fallen the other way. Looking back now, but yeah, thankfully kind of fate fell my way, and yeah, so it kind of, do you know what, it almost feels like it was another lifetime ago that now. It almost doesn't feel like it's me looking back at the shots now. Strange, really.
So what did catching a fish like that, what was the euphoria like at the time? I mean, was that was your whole world at that point?
Yeah, it's huge buzz. But I think I've always found, I don't know if it's just me or not, but I find the buzz from them sort of captures subsides like pretty quick.
How quickly?
Oh, it's hard to say, isn't it?
So is it literally like you catch that and then it's like, were you on to the next one after that? Where did you go after that?
No, I stayed on for the rest of that year.
Yes,
I caught Pearly Tail. It was only a few weeks after, I think, actually. I caught Heather and Pearly that year, and then went back the following year and caught the baby orange and lost what I think was the big orange, which was sort of my last bite from there.
So you were on the car park lake as much as anything to enjoy the stock that was in there, and not just
I wanted to catch all 6 of those mirrors, because they sort of, it was around about a time, like, I never really thought I'd get to fish the car park because a lot of that old history, sadly, they passed away really by that point. Basil died while I was at university in the early 2000s, and then car park lost a couple. Single Scale and Chunky and Uglo, and a lot of the other big uns were starting to pass away as well. And I think during those sort of few years of carp fishing, I mean, there's so many big fish around now. There's so many big uns around. It's phenomenal. Back then, I think in the early 2000s, there really, really wasn't. You had like the old set of big uns, you know, fish like, you know, Mary, Two-Tone, the Black Mirror, like, I mean, really all the big uns that were in here, and sort of a couple of the other books, I suppose, at the time. But after that, like, it didn't really feel like there was much coming through because they were all old groups of like older strain carp. And so I think stocking and stuff that was happening, I don't know, any sort of seemed like day tickets and stuff were getting new stock, and I don't know, it just kind of...
Do you feel like it was your sort of destiny to fish that lake, though? After being so influenced by that book, it's somewhere that you thought you'd end up fishing.
Yeah, I mean, it was somewhere that I always really hoped that I'd get the chance to fish, but just didn't really think that life was ever going to sort of go that way. In honesty, when I moved to Cornwall, I thought that was it for carp fishing. So 2001, when I moved to Falmouth, really, for me, that was it. That was sort of carp fishing done. I just assumed that I'd live in Cornwall for the rest of my life, and that was...
Find somewhere down
there.
That
was that. Yeah, well, no, not even that, really. I just imagined that I'd just
completely not
surf for the rest of my days, and that would be that. But
you would have been happy to have done that then?
Well, obviously not.
Yeah.
Obviously not, given that I'm sat here now. I think that's the thing. Carp fishing's always pulled me back. Like, there's clearly something about it that's like deeply... ingrained, and something that just keeps pulling me back, because it was only I think it was my second year of uni. First year was just wild as it is, drunken haze, and second year I remember I'd passed my driving test, gone back with the car, and I took In Pursuit with me. I didn't take any rods or anything like that, but I took In Pursuit with me. And second year I'd moved into a house where I was living Like I wasn't in halls. Obviously, halls of residence isn't the ideal spot for a load of carp kit and all the rest, is it? And took that back with me, and literally within like, I don't know, I'm sure it was like a couple of months or whatever, I'd gone back and got my kit and brought my kit back down. I remember my housemates being like, "What's all this?" And I was like, "It's my carp fishing kit." And they were like, "You're what?" Putting it next to the surfboards, the sort of, you know. So and I was quite lucky really, because in Falmouth there's a really big reservoir just near Falmouth, like 5 minutes.
Not College
drive. Yeah. It's the upper reservoir from College, so Argyle Reservoir.
Right.
There was some lovely carp in there, really old strain ones. And so I fished there for a couple of years. And what was quite nice was that the surfing and the fishing never really sort of clashed too much, because, you know, classically good surf conditions aren't good fishing conditions, and vice versa. You know, like big, you know, low pressures, southwesterlies, like all that sort of thing is really poor surfing conditions in Cornwall. High pressure, easterlies, northerlies, northeasterlies, or whatever, usually is good surfing conditions. So yeah, I could sort of do a bit of both.
So it always keeps coming back then, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that's the thing. And like I say, like I remember hearing about basil dying when I was down at uni, and just thinking, oh man, that's
I was working for my dad at the time, and when I told them all at work that Basil died, I went out for lunch, and when I came back, they all had black armbands on.
The thing,
I mean, it's a big thing at the time, wasn't it? Because like you say, there was a group of fish.
People invested huge swathes of their lives in trying to catch those carp, and you know, if they did, amazing. You know, the lads that were still there fishing, for some of them when they passed away, you know, they might have invested like every weekend of their life for like 4, 5, 6, 7 years. You know, I remember I've told the story before, but I was there when John Pack caught Heather. He didn't shout Heather, he shouted freedom. Because that was it. He could leave. You know, don't get me wrong, it was a beautiful place to be, and like lots of my best friends to this day I met during those years. So kind of in a way, looking back now, I actually think the best thing about them times was the lads that I met during those years, definitely. And I think there was kind of like a shared, even though everyone was fishing for the same set of fish, there was no kind of jealousy or animosity or
But do you think, I mean, to shout out freedom, I mean, do you think that's a common trend with, you know, a lot of carp anglers, that really they just want to get off of somewhere and take a big sigh and think, thank God for that, you know, rather than
maybe. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs if that actually is the case, isn't it? You know, I mean, when I left, you know, when I stopped fishing there personally, I just had enough. I was just bored of, like, because I was fishing for Arthur. And that one it's only got history of getting caught from a couple of sort of areas, really. So I was just going there week in, week out, putting my rods out in the same old spots and just hoping it'd turn up. You know, you didn't see it very often, that one. There was very little to go on usually, so you couldn't really do anything more than just go down and put your rods out in the same spots.
Is that what you always do, I guess, on a lake like that? Because you would see the fish so often in there as well.
Yeah.
You knew it.
Certain ones were really easy to target. I started off fishing the open water because you had a chance of any of them. And then as soon as I caught Dustbin and Heather fishing the open water, I was like, sweet, I'm going to concentrate on the margin fishing now. So I fished in the edge, fished in the gate, swim, caught Pearly Tail really quickly. I was the last person to ever catch Pearly Tail, actually. Caught her pretty quick, really within a few weeks of sort of targeting that little spot. And then, same the following year with the baby orange as well. Caught her from the same spot, sort of doing the same sort of thing. And so it was good, really, because you didn't just have to sit it out hoping that the right one turned up, if you know what I mean. You could specifically target certain
unusual
ones.
That as well, isn't it?
So unusual. And, you know, certain carp, you know, when you looked at the history of where certain ones have been caught from, some of them had virtually zero history of ever getting caught from certain swims. You know, or like Heather, you know, in the time I was there, I'm sure Heather hadn't been caught from the bars swim where Terry caught her from for like 10 years. So if you wanted to catch Heather, there was no point fishing the bars.
Why do you think that is then? Have you got any idea why?
I don't know. They knew they were so pressured. They knew exactly what was going on and what angler pressure was and what lines were and everything. And once or twice a year, they would just drop their guard enough to get caught, but the rest of the time they just knew exactly what was going on.
But it just goes to I mean, they're creatures of routine, aren't they? And
but formed by angler pressure. Yeah. And so in the end, I just got bored of sitting out in the same corner waiting for.
But your Yateley experience was probably, a lot different to quite a few people. I mean, did you say you'd done a total of 20 odd nights in the end?
Yeah, no. So I think the first year, I think I did somewhere around about 24, maybe 26 nights. First year, I did, sort of 6 nights initially. Caught the dustbin, I think, on either my 5th or 6th morning, I think it was, and then caught common the following morning. And then I didn't go back for a good sort of 6 or 8 weeks, I think. Everyone, there she is.
We're looking at the dustbin.
such a cool carp.
That was the first.
That was my first bite. Yeah. And that was a truly genuine kind of like my knees were jelly, and I've never ever before or since, to be honest, wanted a carp in my net so badly, because I'd seen it was her. And like it rocked as well, or rather him. And
did you say it was quite a wet night or something?
It was pouring down. Like I'd always imagined that classic Yateley photo shoot that you used to see in big carp and stuff. 2 or 3 on hooking mats, 5 or 6 lads on cameras, a couple of goalies either side helping and all that. Like there was none of that. There was my mate Barry. A camera that was steaming up really badly, and we kept getting water over the lens, and he was like, "Mate, these look shit." He was like looking at the back, and he's like,
I think it's a good night shot, actually. I don't think it's too bad.
It's not too bad. The first like 10 were completely unusable. The internal lens had steamed completely, and they just literally looked like they'd been shot like through a barbecue. It was completely misted. And he was like, "Mate, these look awful." So we actually had to put her back in the net for 5 minutes, and I had to try and sort the lens out. And so it was all just a drama. But at the end of the day, it's not the photos that really matter, is it? It's the capture and the memory. But
it is. But like you say, when you look back to it, that period and Heather and all of that wouldn't be your number one memory necessarily, or.
It's hard. I don't know. Like I never want to be that guy just sitting there looking back at my memories and being like, "Oh, remember when," but not out there doing something that means just as much now. Like I never want to. Fundamentally, I don't know. I think, going back to the kind of mindfulness sort of thing and living in the moment. I think in some ways the only thing that really matters is what's happening right now. And I think, I never want to be that guy sitting there.
Spend too much time thinking about
the past.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. I'm eternally glad that I went and did it and invested that time and, made those friends and, it worked out as it did.